Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Welcome, everybody. I am beyond ecstatic for today's, and may I say plural, guests, because you're about to experience, and for all the listeners around the world, I always like to just take a moment and extend huge gratitude for all the people, and you've heard me mention all the countries, we're in every continent, young people, every age. It doesn't matter. I'm just grateful that you're listening, because today's story and what you're about to experience are what truly, to me, exemplify the meaning of why I do this show and why this mission was put on my heart. And I have to say, I spent this morning again in tears as I was revisiting what these two gentlemen have done to make a difference in our world. So if you're running and you're listening to this, prepare yourself. You're going to probably pull over and start to cry. If you are driving, you might want to pull the car over, because you're about to meet two brothers who have in their entire life, and I love that, I want to hear a little bit about the growing up, but have been bonded at the hip. But what they've chosen to do is truly extraordinary. Look at me, I'm going to get choked up. And I truly feel every human being in this world needs to hear this story. So may I please, I feel so privileged and honored to have you on this show. Thank you. And may I introduce you to Richard and Gary Logan, the Logan brothers. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Wow.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well,
yes,
I was in tears earlier. I was.
Well, you can't help look at the people that we get to work with and not feel that way. You really can't. And it's just the people that we work with that make all the difference.
Well, before we tell people about the infamous, amazing, I don't even know how to take everything you've done. It's called Operation Hands On. And in a minute, we'll tell everybody about it. But could you please each just share with me, I'm excited we're doing this as a group, right? I get you both on. Tell me a little bit about, one of you go ahead and kick it off and tell me a little bit about your past, growing up, and what's going to lead us to the story that you're about to share.
Okay, this is Gary, and I guess we were both born in the 50s to a military family. My father was in the Air Force for 20-some years. So, we witnessed a lot of Air Force bases around the world. I was born in France. Richard was born in England. And my sister was born in Ohio. And we're all 22 months apart. So you can kind of imagine the kind of traveling we did as kids. That's probably why Richard and I, like you said, were stuck at the hip, because, when you move every 2 years, you kind of the only friends you got is really the close, the
ones you're familiar with.
Yes. We did travel a lot. My father went to Vietnam in the 60s, and at that time, Richard was getting close to turning 18, and he got his draft card as well. And my mother, who was English, said, no, you're not taking my son and my husband. So she sent us to boarding school in England.
Oh.
And that's, yes, an all-boys boarding school. It was a very interesting experience.
There were one or two girls, but...
yeah. So we, of course, were educated there. And then at 21, my age, Richard's 4 years old, we came back to America and been here basically ever since. Now, we played music together probably for the first, 10, 15, 20 years.
About that.
We did movie scores, off-Broadway shows. We did lots of records, played all over, all of the clubs and CBGBs in New York.
We were hoping to be rock stars.
Yeah, tried.
Well, you still are rock stars. You're just at a whole other level of rock star. And I love looking at your picture, by the way. You make a cute little brother pair, by the way.
Little brother pair, great.
Okay, so the rock stars to be, keep going. I love this. I love the visual from Broadway to playing, music. Yes. Yeah, keep going. I love it.
Yes. And, after the 80s and into the early 90s, I moved to California
He got married and moved to California.
Yeah, I got married and moved to
What
California.
happens to every great rock duo?
Yes. There's a Yoko in all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved to California and I was here for a few years. And during that time, Richard was living in New York and studying to be a scuba diving instructor. So he then moved to Cozumel, Mexico, where he worked as a scuba diving instructor. And then where he found his wife.
No, she found me.
Okay.
Wait, I
she
love
found
that.
him.
She found me.
We weren't married at the time. I had decided a month earlier that I should kind of face facts and figured I'd be a bachelor for the rest of my life. But it was great.
Yes.
The friends would come in from all over the world, stay for a couple, and go home. And I still got to scuba dive the whole time. So yeah, it was paradise. It was a great retirement. And then the blonde walked into the shop, and that did it. A year later, I kind of looked up and said, thanks a lot. There we go. But I moved to San Antonio a year later, and
landlocked, by the way.
Yeah, landlocked. Yeah, okay.
I mean, for a scuba diving instructor, I was always wondered how I'm going to live in a place that's landlocked and I can't do any scuba diving. So instead of scuba diving, he decided that he was going to be a massage therapist.
Sure.
So him and his wife opened up the San Antonio Massage and Spa. In what year? 2000?
That was 2000.
And, spent years and years and years running a spa. Learning everything it could, of course, about, skin creams and, massage.
Therapy more than anything else, not just nice, come and have a wonderful spa day. I was kind of serious about the medical aspect of it.
Okay, the actual healing properties.
Yes.
And I was living this time now. I'd moved from California and I moved to Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. And I was living there when my mother called me and said, Richard is getting himself into working on burn survivors from the Brooke Army Medical Center, survivors from Iraq and Afghanistan, and that he's performing miracles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'd like to see more about this. So I, of course, spoke to Richard and looked through. We had a few Skype sessions ourselves. I could see some of the things that he was doing. So I decided that what I would do was get a reporter that I knew in Florida, a photographer and a cameraman, and go to San Antonio and record a documentary movie to really tell the story of what Richard's doing. And what he was, him and his wife were, all of a sudden developing there. So I got there and I followed 7 of their patients or clients for almost a year. And that's how Operation Hands On was born. We did the movie. I put it out on the film festival circuit. I won the San Antonio Film Festival. So I am not only a musician, but an award-winning film director.
Oh, and he is just, he's so humble about it.
Well, actually, the humility comes in. Let's just step back and realize that the gift, just watching the trailer makes you cry. So just seeing those stories, right? Like, and every listener, they will want to go watch this and see the documentary when you're done. But it takes me, I love the way you just took us through the journey, Gary. And Richard, I want to go to tell us about how you, starting a spa and really getting into the healing, right? How did you and your wife, tell us how this went from having a San Antonio spa and massage therapy into helping burn victims that now, wait till the people hear the stats. It's startling what you've done for people.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wife, who was in a high-pressure corporate job, said, look, I'm retiring over the next couple of years, and maybe we should do something. It just so happened that massage therapy had always been kind of part of my life. I was 14. I found out how much girls really like massage. I thought, whoa, I should know more about this stuff. Anyway, it was there, so I'd always been interested in things like the acupressure, shiatsu, always a little bit of the natural things. So I thought, hey, why don't we go to school in Texas? I checked out some of the schools, and of course, in Texas at the time, it was only 300 hours were required to become a massage therapist. And I thought, well, kind of got the empathy for it. It could go up this and something we can do together. And so we did just that, but decided we were going to do it properly. So it was a Class A office building, the best products, and I trained every therapist and decided that once it came out of school, education was the only thing that you had to, because it was just sorely lacking the amount of education that was really given to therapists. So as an aside, we ended up lobbying the legislature in Texas to get the number of hours increased so that at least we could turn out halfway decent therapists. But about 5 years into the salon, we started seeing a lot of the soldiers around San Antonio, around town, that were just in such bad shape. Not only burns, but every wounded, every amputee, and just around the time we started seeing so many of the soldiers, we also picked up a National Geographic magazine that had an article about the work that was being done in BAMC. That's the Brooke Army Medical Center, because it is also the preeminent burn research center here in the Southwest. So I just said, okay, what can we do? And just at the week that happened, this is where the film starts off. A mother and a wife of two of the Marines came into the salon because they were under stress, and their husband and son decided they should come in and just relax. By the time my wife has finished talking to him, she came back and she said, "There's two burn soldiers. We don't know what we can do, but we will do all that we know how." And that's where the film starts. They came in, and this big 6'4" Marine came in looking down like, it looked downtrodden, and just looked at us and said, "My wife says I have to come here." So we thought, okay, we'll do what we can. Don't worry. You're not going to do a facial on me, are you? And we looked and said, "Yes, we are." This is where the film kicks off. He was one of the first that Gary interviewed, and decided that there were things that we could do. I mean, we were experimenting along the way, but at the same time, we were getting in touch with every burn center that had to deal with trauma victims, especially those that had been blown up, because we were dealing with that as well, not just being burned. And so we were in touch with hospitals in Australia. We were in touch with one of the preeminent burn doctors in Chicago, just getting as much information as possible. We were with neuromuscular specialists in Oxford, in England, and just trying to get. And it took us. We just developed. It started happening. The results were actually noticed by the nurses and doctors over at BAMC, and they wanted to know what the soldiers were doing. And he said, "Well, I've been going to the spa." And eyebrows get raised when soldiers say they're going to a spa, but they wanted to know what was going on, so they actually called us in to do an in-service and show them what we were doing with soldiers. And the day after we did the in-service, they called us up and said, "Will you take more?" So we said, "Sure, we'd be happy to, but if we do, we'll be bankrupt in a month, because we're not charging the soldiers." And we had 6 of them that were coming, and we work on them for 3 hours at a time, twice a week, and we have 2 or 3 therapists working on it at the same time. So they said, no, they're active duty, and their insurance will pay for it. So they set up codes for the kind of work we were doing, and that part was great. I mean, we started, and their insurance was paying for them, and his caseworker had said to him, "No, nothing will change. You'll get the same level of care, which is the contract you have with the government." And 2 weeks after he was med-boarded out, he got a letter from the VA saying that they would no longer pay for the therapy.
Why?
So other than being because it wasn't a viable doctor-approved case studies and all of this, just because it wasn't something that was in their playbook. Let's put it that way. So that's why we have Yes, I know. We've gone through it, and we've been. That's exactly how we feel about it. But these are our guys, so it made no difference to us. Obviously, we said, "You just keep coming. That doesn't make any difference." We didn't get into this for the money anyway. But let's go. And
just let me interject something here.
Here we go.
When I came on and I made the movie, and we decided to form the Operation Hands On 501c3. I did have a lot of conversations with the insurance company and the VA. Just to get the good news here, after working at it for about 4 years or so, we finally broke through the quagmire that they made us go through. A couple of the soldiers that were worked on persisted, went to their doctors, made the doctors write the right referrals. The ombudsman helped. All the people I want to say thank you to, because we have finally got the VA to pay for the therapies for our soldiers. 4 years to finally get that. But in those 4 years, the insurance company still owes my brother well over $100,000, and they've admitted that they owe it, but they have never paid it.
That's all.
So it was one of those things that helped put the spa out of business, because they were doing more soldiers, from donations than they were doing from insurance companies. Because as soon as these guys retired or got discharged, they started cutting off all of their therapies. So it was a fight that we went through, and luckily we won. And so now we have soldiers. Richard's got a new one that came in last week. And the first thing that Richard said, hey, you don't have to pay it. Operation Hands On will pay for it. And he said, nope, I'm going to get the insurance companies to pay for it.
Wow.
So we won.
Yeah.
Basically.
You know what's amazing too? There is a story that I would love for you guys to share. I want to hear the story that I'm just waiting on the edge of my seat, the Isaac story. Will you tell us about Isaac? Because I hear there's an amazing story.
Isaac was a young recon Marine. Sitting in an LAV, his light armored vehicle, when a 500-pound bomb went off underneath it. He was on patrol in Iraq, and he was blown out of the back of the steel doors. He had shrapnel in his left leg. His left wrist and ulna were burned to the bone. He burned 67% of his body. His ears were burned off completely. Had 37 fractures in his jaw. And from what I understand, the young man was still trying to get back into the vehicle to pull his driver out. Just phenomenal. He was in the hospital for 5 years. I started working on him 8 months after the injury. And we worked on him. We worked on him for 5 years. And his determination and the fact that his father was also a Marine, or he was a retired Marine at the time, but his dad was the kind of man that would left his job and sat at his bed and stayed with him for almost 2 years. Oh. And would literally sit at his bed with the morphine pump in his hand and not let his son pump the morphine whenever he felt like. He says, I'll give it to you when I think you need it. And just an incredible, incredible story of dedication. Anyway, at the end of that 5 years, the Marines wanted to med board him out. They said, okay, but with the Marines, they can't med board you out unless you fail a combat fitness test. So Isaac said, nope, I want my test. And apparently he did well enough to the point where they did not med board him out. He's still a serving Marine. They sent him to be an instructor, and now he's one of our men in Washington. And he actually was one of the soldiers that President Obama honored on July the 4th. That's 3 years ago. Wow. And Isaac sent me a picture of the White House, said, hey, that'll be my address soon. But okay, but that's that's kind of the standard of his world, his view. He said he'll be Marine, and until the country doesn't need him anymore. Oh. And that's the only way he looks at it. But phenomenal. But from what he came from, to the point where he couldn't even feed himself when we started, to now being, I said a serving Marine. He's constantly out on training missions, and he has the nickname "The Machine," is what his handle is, according to the people he trains with. So it's just there's a story for you. But until he's no longer a serving Marine, you can't do an interview with him. No, so you kind of have to wait until he's out of the service.
That's a miracle. And I'd love to know. So this is the part that I know a lot of listeners will be intrigued by. Go back to when you said you started working with him 8 months after. Right? And he was in the hospital for 5. What does that look like, gentlemen? Like, what does that look like, Richard, when you're working with a burn victim? What were you doing over that next 4.5 years?
A number of things. When you start off, at least for the scope of practice as a massage therapist, hydration is the first thing, because skin is our thing. So that's the hydration that you need, because the skin is constantly. And then there was, I don't even know how to describe it. You're dealing with hypertrophic scarring. You're dealing with that excess of skin that the body produces because it's constantly thinking it's under trauma, and it's constantly trying to produce extra. The formation of scar bands, areas that stop you being able to move things, stop you being able to open up your hands, or being able to extend your arm completely, because the skin is contacted and it's contracted, and it's not letting you do. So what we did more than anything was see what we could do about changing the ratio. If we get technical here, of collagen to elastin, and just give more movement more than anything else. A classic example was he has an elbow that cannot open straight all the way, and he could only open about 130 some odd degrees. And PT had been working with him for 3-4 years and says, okay, that's as much as we can do. And I had a bit of, no, we're not going to stop. And 3 months later, we had actually got 12 more degrees. So there's always something that can be done no matter what. But the biggest thing you take away from these guys is how lucky you actually are. So be so thankful, so grateful for everything that you've got, because, and also be grateful for these guys more than anything, for the attitude that they have. I said, just the whole idea that, hey, I was just doing my job, and I'd go again in a minute. But they did say, it was one very telling phrase that I got from one of the soldiers. He said, I joined up because I wanted to serve my country. The country has been fabulous for my family. I wanted to do my part. I fully expected to possibly get shot, to get blown up, but I didn't expect to get burned. There's a whole different mindset to that kind of wound. And sadly enough, some of our guys are still dealing with what that does to your mind. I'm still working on one young soldier who has a tendency, when I start working on him, he just goes out. He passes out and he starts to snore, but he is still having nightmares about the men that he lost. And that's 10 years later. So we have no idea what these men are going through, what our men are going through, and women. That have had to go through anything like this. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I want to thank you because what you guys are doing, and I want everyone that's listening, I want to make sure as we wrap this up that they can have access to go to Operation Hands On, go to the website, www.Operation Hands On. And I believe, and I would like you to make sure that if they want to watch the documentary and they want to see this film, because I would say, prepare yourself, get a box of tissues and be prepared to have a life-changing experience. Because, to me, you know what it made me do? It's what you just said, Richard. It's, wow, we are so darn blessed and fortunate. And look at the life. We have feet to walk. We have eyes to see. And they're living and they're surviving. And I love that Marine said, I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And yet what they've done to keep us alive and to protect us and for our freedom, and just what they've ended up having to have a life
and
that's
they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Well, just to let everybody know out there, right now, Richard and I are sitting in the hotel convention center, Sheraton Hotel Convention Center at the Phoenix World Burn Congress. We are right now with 1,000 other burn survivors, explaining to them what we're telling you now, that we worked with the military for 10 years, and everything that Richard's learned is upstairs on a table being shown through the TV, and they're getting all the information we can. Now, there's one more important thing that we have to mention, because a lot of this wouldn't have been able to be done without the Eminence Organic Skincare Company. Richard and his wife looked for the best organic cream, would be the best on these burns, and with help of the two owners, Boldajar and Attila, of the Eminence Organic Skincare Company, they donated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of their cream to my brother to be able to use on our soldiers.
And they're still
donating now.
Wow.
And they actually came in, they saw what the effects were, and as the owner left, he said, anything they need, put it in as a military order, and he's been sending it for free ever since.
Wow. We need to give them a huge shout out. You're exactly right. Yes. Wow.
Absolutely. And we have just developed with them the main cream. So Richard has been using combinations of their products. So what they've agreed to do is take the combinations that Richard came up with, and they're going to bottle it and give it to us to be able to travel around to burn centers across the country. This is what we're going to be doing in the next few years, and explain to them all the therapies that we've learned with the military, and we're going to present these creams to them, and we're going to see, how many people, of course, this will be able to benefit. because a major thing about this cream is the way, in conjunction with the other therapies that Richard has been given, he's pretty much helped with what's called burn pruritus, which is when you're burnt, your skin itches. I mean, Richard will be able to explain it better because, of course, he's the guy who does the therapies. But what I have to explain to people is that it helps with the itching. Most burn survivors understand. I've asked 20, 30 people this morning alone, every single one of them saying the itching is awful. So we've given out samples of our cream, and we're expecting to get a barrage on our website about these, how well they think of this cream. So we're bottling it, and we're going to take it all around the country, and hopefully we're going to be able to get to the 250 to 400,000 burn survivors each year in the United States alone.
Wow.
So
that is just in the United States alone. Just here.
Just in the United States alone. And that's, people going to emergency rooms for burns. Of course, some are worse than others. But where we know that from our experience that this combination of creams that my brother puts together helps a lot with a lot of the problems that they're going to encounter. So we just want to make sure. I mean, this is all about awareness. It's about getting out there and letting the people know that this is available to them, because that's the problem with burn survivors. All the ones that we talk to here today is like, they don't know. Nobody knows, that there's help out there for them, that they're not getting that information. So,
awareness,
luckily
awareness.
we're talking to you. Hopefully everybody who's listening to this will pass it on to anybody that they know who's had a burn or is a burn survivor, and and tell them to go on to operationhands-on.org, and we will help and give them all the information we have.
I love it. Thank you. OperationHandsOn.org. Everybody go reach out to Richard and Gary and learn more. You can see the documentary. And I just want to thank these gentlemen for taking time to escape to their hotel room as they're sitting there in this massive convention center. And you're serving and supporting 1,000 burn victims just today. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for the people's lives that you're changing and helping to improve. I love you both. I can't wait to meet you in person someday. And I just thank you. Thank you for taking a choice to do something with your life to make a difference. God love you both. Love you.
Holly,
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And a shout out to Amanda, our amazing friend who, again, right? Wait, we got to do this because Amanda, and I want everybody listening, all the listeners to know, I always say, if you know somebody that's living that's got an extraordinary life or doing something to make a difference, let me know. And I met Amanda speaking at a big event in New York. She walked up to me. We were talking. And next thing you know, she's telling me about Richard and Gary and all this great stuff. So you never know. It's serendipity. Be open and ready for what's next in your life to make a difference. So thank you. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.